Hey, oh, this is Mr. B. There's some instructions on the final project, which is the school bell design, which is basically just a digital clock with um, LEDs to represent a buzzer going off at 7:49, 9:13, and 10:44. Alright, so some basic overview stuff. First of all, you're going to want to make it in PLD mode. And once you do that, uncheck all those GPIOs and LEDs and stuff. You don't need to pull anything in for now. If you're going to go for extra credit and program it, then we'll address that. You come see me and I'll tell you what to do. Um, as far as the workspace, what I would do is go to Edit Properties and make your workspace as big as possible. Eve should be fine. That's pretty big. And starting all the way at the far right corner would be your seconds. Now, the setup you're probably going to want to do so you can see it run. I'm going to show you mine running in a minute. Is I would take some logic probes and set them up like this. And what's going to be driving those logic probes is going to be this decimal to BCD display. Where you get that is right here. And there it is for you. DEC BCD. It's a BCD to 7-segment display. And so that's a decoder. It decodes what's called binary coded decimal, and it decodes it into 7-segment. And so that's what I'm representing here is a 7-segment display. I put in 2 logic probes, so it's just a little bit easier to make out what's going on. If I do 1, it's kind of funky on my eyeballs. Because they're active lows, you're going to need a bunch of inverters so that this thing runs the way you'd expect it to run. What I did as far as running stuff, you don't have to use logic probes, but are these on-page connectors. I did it just so it's going to be a lot neater, and I would recommend doing that for this. You only have to do this one setup. I'm going to show you a trick in a second. Once you have this setup, you can copy paste this guy. So let's think about, you're looking at the second hands-on digital clock. The one the digit all the way to the right goes 0 to 9, right? Mod 10 up counter. So I would set this up as you see, and then what I would do is I would copy that whole chunk right as you see it, Control C, and then I would Control V it, and I would just move it over a little bit. Okay, like that. And what you notice is it changed. Let's look at what's driving the A for this would be the one that would go up to 59. Imagine the largest number in seconds you see is when that you have a 5 and a 9, so 59 seconds. So this would be a mod 6 over here. So mod 6 ultimately is what's going to drive this guy, and a mod 10 is what's going to be driving here. And what you'll notice is that it changed the name a little bit. These are not the same. This is now different. So every time you copy and paste, but this matches up with this guy here. That's what you want. And so all you need to do is, I'm going to move the name. You see the name that gets copied down. It moves down when you copy. Notice what even happened with this bus. I would run buses for everything else. I wouldn't do on-page connectors for everything else because you're going to have a list of on-page connectors so big that you will get lost. So use buses for the other stuff. So what I did is I called these guys A0, B0, C0, D0. What I would do over here is I would still call this second. So what I'm going to have to do is change the bus. Oops, double click on the bus. I'm going to change the name just to plain old seconds. I'm not going to change that. I'm going to hit OK. It's going to ask me to virtually connect the buses. I want to do that. And I want to keep the name at seconds. So if you get that, just keep that. Now notice what it did. Okay, this is what I wanted to do. Here's A0, B0, C0, D0. That would be from your least significant to most significant bit on the mod 10. this is going to be a mod 6 over here. It's going to have a different A, B, C, and D value. Okay? It's going to be a different counter. You have a mod 6 driving this guy, a mod 10 driving this one over here. Okay, so that's some basics. So initially, just setting that up takes a little bit, but then it's copy paste from there. So kind of a pain in the beginning. I would just set it up like you see it. You'll be pleased with it, and then from there it's just copy paste and making some little changes in the buses. Everything else will work out fine. So as far as the chips you use, per the specs, it says for the seconds, you're going to use the asynchronous counter equivalent to a 74 LS93. That's it right there. Where do you get those? You get those right here where it says counters. You click on that, and you've got this guy here. Here's a 4-bit asynchronous binary counter. That's it. And that's what you see, counter 4-bit binary asynchronous. Okay, so as far as the next, for your minutes, you're going to use something equivalent to a 74 LS163. That's what you're looking for. When you're looking for something equivalent to a 74 LS193, that's what you're looking for. Okay, you notice that the block diagrams look exactly the same, and they work exactly the same. Go figure. So I'm going to go show you. One other item I forgot to mention is I'm going to have one other on-page connector, and that's going to be clock. And initially, as you start out small, what you're going to want to do is build the seconds. First of all, just build the mod 10, get that running. Build the mod 6, get that running. And then the last thing is to figure out how I need to have, so you'd have a separate clock for each one of these initially. And then you have to figure out how can I get my mod 10 to clock the mod 6. And then once you get that trick figured out, I'm laughing because I just gave you a beautiful, and you probably don't get it, but you will. So once you figure out how to connect those two, as you start building bigger and bigger and bigger, going from getting the minutes, or getting seconds, then getting the minutes, getting the hours, you're going to want to speed up the clock. So by just having one clock, you only want one clock on a design. If you have multiple different speeds of clocks, Multisim does not like that. So as you get bigger, you're going to need to speed up your clock, and towards the end you have to get to 800 hertz. Initially you can go like 50, 60 hertz for just the seconds only, but as your circuit gets bigger and bigger, you're going to need to speed it up. So that way you only have to go to one spot, you change your frequency, and then it's changing every clock via an on-page connector. Alright, so here is my design, and I'm going to be mean ready. Watch. Ah, man. I blocked out the stuff that you want to see. The stuff you really like to see is under black there. Okay, so what I've got is, here is seconds, there's minutes, there's hours, and what I'm showing you is, here's that one clock. Don't worry about GPIO 0, you don't need that now. Again, I have one clock, and then that on-page connector is in here, in each one of these guys. And what I'm doing for running this is I have one clock just running the seconds, another clock, so basically an independent clock, one of these on-page connectors, running the minutes, and then another independent clock running the hours. That way I can test it. Otherwise, if I'm testing, I have to wait till everything gets through. You just want to see, does this go up to 59? Does that go up to 59? Then go back to 0, and then does this go up to 12, then go to 01, 02, or 12, and then it goes to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10, 11, 12, and then repeat. So let me show you what I mean by all that. Let's start out with the seconds. And so as I mentioned, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Now, like I said, it goes a little slow, and especially when you're zoomed out, it goes even slower. As you zoom in, it will kind of speed up on you. So I have underneath this black box, I've got two of the asynchronous counters, or the chips there, the integrated chips. One's doing a mod 10, one's doing a mod 6. And you'll see here, let me just show you this one more time. It's going to start out, no matter what you do, it's going to start out like some weird spot. Sometimes it'll start at 0, 0. It might start out with this this part here that I'm circling as a 1. Don't worry, you just let it run for a second. It'll get in its groove. And so let's just see. There goes 10, 11, 12, and I'll zoom in a little bit. It'll get faster if I zoom in a little bit. See how that worked? 8, 9. And what I should see is that it, as instantly as that gets over to a 0, this number changes. There's a little ripple, of course, there, but you can see that it's not like saying it's not saying 39. It's not weird numbers, 43, 44, 45, 6, 47, 48, 49. It goes to, you see how it really shows 50 first. It doesn't show 59 and then it just does some weird things. So some people might have some, if you see something look different than what you see on the video, then you don't have it quite right. And you saw after 59 went back to 0. So that's cool. So once I have that, I copied and pasted both of these. I copied and pasted both of those, and then I brought them over to here for the minutes. Now the difference between those two really is the chip that's driving it. Remember, what's going to drive my minutes is not going to be the asynchronous MSI chip. It's going to be the equivalent to a 163 chip. So that's what's going to drive my minutes. And again, what I'm doing is I'm just copy pasting underneath this black box. I have a bus which has the A, B, C's, and D's, you know, your least significant, most significant bits, and that's what you're seeing. So the output, I have a bus over right here. Stop. So when I built it, I made a bus, double-clicked, and I called it minutes, as you can see. And when I hooked up, I just called that one like the A. I called that from my caps locks. I called that A0 for this chunk, and then I'm going to call that one A1 for that chunk. And there you can see how I've labeled them, just to keep things separate. And yeah, once I built it, I didn't have to change anything up in here. That part take care of itself. Otherwise, I just had to change the name to minutes. You'll figure that stuff out. It's not too hard. But basically, you're just making another counter using a different chip to go up to 59. And you'll notice that these guys, when I run them, I'll move over a little bit, that this chunk here is clocked separately. These are changing, here's seconds, here's minutes. They're changing at the same time because I have not connected my seconds to the minutes. And I don't want you to do that. What I want you to do is to get everything working independently, and I'll check you off as having them all working. Then we'll time together, and then we'll make a really fast clock so that you can only have to watch the minutes and the hours. And from there, then it's going to be figuring out, okay, how do I hook up the logic so that I have a buzzer go off, in this case an LED, go off at 7:49, and it would be off. It'd be really annoying if we did this in real life, but we'll just have it go off from 7:49 to 7:50. All you have to do is just worry about at 7:49. Once it hits 7:50, your logic should basically stop it from going off. Okay, so I want to have it go for 1 second, have it go off basically for 1 minute. And you can see my hours over here. So here's a trick with the hours: 12, 1, 2. So that's going to be the hardest part for you to figure out. Is after 12, it's going to go 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. That's going to be your hardest trick because you're going to have to get a little creative with some of the loads and clears. That's just that's the trick I'm telling you, is you just got to think about what would be the wisest choice of using the loads or clears. That's, you know, you're going to want to spend a little time to think of that through. It's obviously very easy to make that part there 0 to 1. Yeah, so you've got a mod 2, and over here you'd have to make a mod 10. but then at times it doesn't go all the way up to 9, right? Because after 12 o'clock it's going to go back to 1. So that's what you got to think about. Um, yeah, and that's basically it. As far as adding on the logic for the bells, that's going to be pretty easy. I think you have no trouble with that. All right, so that is the final project in a nutshell. Good luck.